Ano ai aloha ya kākou. Thank you for joining us today. Governor Josh Green, the National Weather Service, State of Hawaii Emergency Management officials, and County Emergency Management administrators will present this year's hurricane weather outlook. After formal remarks from our speakers, once that concludes, we will promptly begin facilitated questions with media present. Following that, the governor will formally proclaim May as Hurricane Awareness and Preparedness Month. Without further ado, it is my privilege to welcome Governor Josh Green.
No need for that. I'm going to be celebrating storms otherwise. Good, just very kind of you, though. Aloha, everyone. I'm joined by our experts in weather and preparedness today. You're going to hear, as was mentioned, from our top people, General Logan, Administrator Barros. They've been fantastic through these storms. We've had so much. John Bravender, he is the guy I call and text in the middle of the night to get what is going to happen 4 hours from now in the weather, or even 40 minutes from now. We also have terrific administrators from each of the counties. You're going to hear from Elton, from Kauai, from Amos, from Maui, from Talmadge, from Big Island. We're telling Talmadge should never retire today. So if he tries to hint at that, just tell him no. These are, again, people who have helped us through really serious moments as we've gone through quite a lot of natural disasters in the past few years. So mahalo, everyone, for being aware. It is a serious thing to think about a hurricane. This is the season coming upon us. These gentlemen are going to explain to us the specifics of that. But let me say this. Preparedness is the most important thing that we can do. It's your kuleana to be ready. Government will be ready, too. We will pre-position tactical machines and people. We will be ready when storms come. However, the best thing that you could possibly do is be ready at home. When I say that, I mean have 14 days of supplies, water, and medications when we're in hurricane season, just in case things get tough. We've seen firsthand in the recent years how quickly things can change in just a few hours. Devastating severe weather has hit us, and preparation can never be understated. Our geography makes preparedness even more important because we are the most isolated, populated landmass on the planet here. And if we ever had a severe hurricane come and take out our harbor, we would be on our own for a while. And so that's why you have to be prepared. NOAA, and you're going to hear more from our gang, says the Eastern and Central Pacific are both expected to have really active seasons. And if you look over my shoulder, you're kind of getting the punchline first. NOAA's emphasizing that seasonal outlooks do not necessarily predict landfalls. This is how many storms are going to come through our region. So it's going to be between 5 and 13 tropical cyclones that come through our area. That includes tropical depressions, tropical storms, and hurricanes, all of which are serious. They can all cause flooding. They can cause serious damage. They can cause loss of life. So this is what we're up against this year. In some previous years, we've had far fewer predicted storms, as few as like 2 to 4. So this is likely to be a very active season. I don't make light out of it because of what people have been going through, flooding in their houses, having to reconstruct their lives. So we've seen firsthand what storms like this do to our shores. They don't just bring wind and rain, they can disrupt power. So that's why we work very closely with HECO and the exceptional executives and team on Kauai. It can also affect our communication systems. That's why also we have to have the telecom folks always ready, because when we have a storm or a disaster, we could be unable to communicate. Ed's always there on transportation for us. He does a great job to get the roads back in place. The water systems can be overwhelmed. Supply chains obviously can be disrupted. So that's why we're constantly working to have more executives and more professionals strengthening our coordination. So alongside HIEMA, the counties, we have the National Guard, first responders, all the utilities, the healthcare providers are aware that they may have to hunker down and provide healthcare for longer periods of time. So again, 14-day supply, emergency supply kit should always be there when a storm is on the radar. That means have enough food in your house. Junk food is fine. Have enough water, 14 days. Have your medications, have some extra batteries and flashlights. Have pet supplies. We love our puppies. We certainly do. I know you guys do. And then essential documents for each of your household members. Make sure you know where those documents are in case you have to evacuate. You want to keep those with you. It's very important in case your house gets damaged or flooded. It's difficult to get those documents back quickly. Have an emergency family plan, please. Know where you would go and who you would talk to first if we had to evacuate and be away from your home for several days, especially because once phone is disrupted, your family members are going to be worried about where you are, and they're going to want to be able to call that shelter or call that relative where you're staying. Also, make sure you sign up for our alerts if you don't mind. The alerts that will be pushed to your phones are very valuable. They will come before storms hit, but also they can give you a lot of essential updates. We love to communicate with that and not just the Coconut Wireless. Basically, I'll tell you this. We can recover much more quickly with these great team members if we avoid big damage up front, or if we avoid you getting sick and needing to go into the hospital because you didn't have your medications. So that's what we're about. We also want to thank the legislature, if I may. The legislature funded us and helped us access $175 million from the Kona 1 and 2 lows recently. That's enough to get us through the hump until the federal dollars come in to help people recover on the North Shore. It's very important that they did that. Also, they've given us $100 million in the budget, which I will sign in a couple weeks as we head towards the deadline. That $100 million is a flex account so that if there are a lot of storms, which we anticipated for this year, we will not have to come back into session. We will not have to worry about that. We will have that $100 million to immediately deploy, whether it's to have National Guard or housing or extra water and what have you. We'll be accountable. We'll report back to the leadership at the House and Senate every dollar that we might spend. We hope to not have to spend any of it because we're hoping that storms don't really take any, do any harm or take any toll on our state. But we have all these things in place. We've gotten pretty adept at dealing with storms because we first had the crisis with COVID. It was its own kind of storm that caused isolation. We had the fire, and blessings to the people in Lahaina and to Mayor Bisson and everyone who are recovering very well now. But we saw how long it took to recover after that fire. That fire happened because of a storm, remember. A hurricane was off the shore. The winds were about 76 miles an hour, and the winds behind that hurricane are what spread the embers down the mountain. So a hurricane can have a lot of effects. And then, of course, the floods, which dropped 2 trillion gallons of water and threatened, for example, some of our dams, whole communities. Hundreds of people had their houses destroyed. So all of these are examples of how we've pulled together. We'll do it again, but expect 5 to 13 cyclones this year. We'll hope they miss us, but we'll be ready if they come near. Aloha.
Up next, John Bravender, NOAA, National Weather Service.
Thank you for joining us to talk about hurricane preparedness. As we've seen with the NOAA Outlook issued this morning, we're expecting a very busy hurricane season here in the Central Pacific. 5 to 13 tropical cyclones. An average year for us is 4 to 5. So we're looking for the potential of a very busy year. One of the drivers that leading to this, the busier than normal season, is the El Nino Southern Oscillation. We've heard a lot in the last few months about the upcoming El Nino. What is El Nino? It's warmer waters right in the equatorial Pacific, and it has global implications. Warmer waters in the tropics here in the Pacific compared to the rest of the global tropics. For us here in the Pacific Ocean, leads to a few things in addition to the warmer waters, including weaker trade winds, less wind shear, and those contribute to more tropical cyclones here in the Central Pacific. The last strong El Nino year that we had, we point back to 2015, which was our record-setting hurricane season. 2015, going into that summer, we were already a little warmer. So we're starting off cooler this year, and that's part of what leads to that wide range in the tropical cyclone numbers. 5 to 13 is a very large range. And it depends on how quickly those warmer El Nino conditions develop over the summer and how they impact our hurricane season. One thing we also saw in 2015 was not just additional activity, but also more tropical cyclones forming in the Central Pacific Basin. Normally we have maybe one or two that develop in the Central Pacific. Most move in from the east. 2015, half of them developed within our basin. So that could lead to very faster onset times, less time to prepare. That's why you need to take this opportunity now. We talk about preparedness. It's a year-round activity. You should always be prepared. We've had flooding during the wet season. We've had windstorms. You could have a tsunami any time of the year. It's important to have your supplies on hand, 14 days that the governor just mentioned. Go get those now. 14 days might be daunting. It's hard to stock up. It's a lot of space. It's a lot of cost. Build towards it. Every time you go to the store, get a little extra. You don't have to buy special long-term, multi-year meals ready to eat. Just buy some more shelf-stable canned food, something that you like. You're not going to want to eat unusual food in an emergency. You want to eat what you have. So pick that up now and don't wait in line as the storm approaches. The other thing you don't want to do is stock up on water. One, you don't need to go out and buy water. Lots of organizations will have bags that you can get, either buy or even give away for free from the Board of Water Supply, that you can have on hand and fill up as the storm approaches, to just be ready as those events come towards us. We talked about the hazards from hurricanes. There's a variety of hazards. You think of wind as the primary threat. That's what determines a tropical storm or hurricane. We've seen a lot of flooding from heavy rain as well. Lane in 2018 didn't directly impact the state with wind, but we saw significant damage, significant flooding on the Big Island from the heavy rains. High surf and storm surge are also issues along the coast. Hurricanes don't need to approach the islands to be dangerous. We had fatalities in 2016 from Hurricane Celia in the eastern Pacific. And as the governor mentioned, it wasn't just Dora in 2023, but even Lane and Hector in 2018, we had very large wildfires, in part driven by winds well removed from those hurricanes. So these are multi-hazard weather systems to be prepared for. And as you get ready for hurricane season, remember that preparation helps you throughout the year for any hazards that we might have. With that, I'll turn it back. Thank you.
Up next, Major General Stephen Logan, Haima.
Aloha kako. Yeah, I want to add some thanks to the governor for proactively working with the legislature this year, along with his team, to provide us those additional resources that he just described, that enables us to provide a safe, secure, and thriving state of Hawaii. As you know, your Hawaii National Guard is predominantly staffed by part-time soldiers and airmen at about 75%. And so it requires either, number one, authority, or number two, funding for me to be able to activate those professionals, to be able to bring them prior to the time of need, to be postured in all 4 counties. We've had numerous repetitions throughout the recent Kona low period and as far back as last year, when we prepared for the potential tsunami coming out of Alaska and Russia. Additionally, we recently completed our annual hurricane preparedness exercise entitled Makani Pahili, and that was worked on with all 4 counties, my other fellow State Department directors, a variety of different federal partners, U.S. Army Pacific, the Indo-Pacific Command, the United States Coast Guard here. So I believe that we're well honed and we're well postured to be ready for this hurricane season. The timing of the Makani Pahili exercise is deliberate, to do it before the hurricane season starts. So I take this year's above normal forecast very seriously, and I feel that we're sufficiently postured for the communities, and I ask you all to do the same for your families, for your loved ones, and for your businesses by preparing now. An ancient military strategist had a quote, and we use it a lot for planning. It says, "Plan for what is difficult while it is easy. Do what is great while it is small." So we're looking at about a 70% probability, but remember, it only takes one storm, one event. Look back on the March Kona low storms and see how much Hawaii was impacted during those separate events that kind of accumulated together. And I ask you to, like I said, prepare now. Thank you very much.
Up next, Administrator James Barros, Haima.
Aloha. As a general mentioned, as a governor mentioned, we did our annual Makani Pahili exercise. So the entire state emergency management enterprise got together. We looked at approaching hurricane, working with the National Weather Service, and the entire enterprise, from our county partners to every state department to our military that's here in the state, our National Guard, even some of our private partners came together, and we looked at what we do pre-impact of this hurricane, and then we spent some time looking at post-impact and how we work together, how we collaborate, how we strengthen our preparedness. Right now, the message coming from today's press conference is we're really asking and encouraging our individuals and our families and our communities to do the same thing, to look at your plans, review them, look at your supplies, as John mentioned, and go into hurricane season prepared and ready for whatever happens. The other piece is we want to strengthen that emergency management enterprise. We want to include our communities within that enterprise. So the state has a HHARP program that's designed to assist communities in strengthening their ability to respond as a community if they're isolated, and even if they're not isolated, and how we help one another. We really look at that aloha spirit is at the core of our preparedness, how we help one another, how we help our neighbors. So we're encouraging communities to sign up for the HHARP program. Go to ready.hawaii.gov and let the Haima team and our county teams work with your communities. Thank you.
And now we're going to go to our county administrators, and we're going to start with Talmadge Magno, Administrator of the Hawaii County Civil Defense.
Aloha, good afternoon. I'd like to thank the Governor, National Weather Service, and State for putting this together as we prepare for this hurricane season. So part of the preparation that we have to all take upon us starts with a plan. We all need to have a plan. It takes quite an effort to put a plan together, but we all have that information already in our heads. So if you need help, the counties and the state emergency management, we have on our websites information that'll help you put together a plan. Also, we have templates that you just fill in the blanks that'll put the plan together for you. So we ask people to utilize our websites to get this information, this product that we put together. So in your plan, what you have to consider is your vulnerabilities. Each person's vulnerabilities are different, and depending on where you work, live, where you play, based upon the hazards that John pointed out, the surge, the dangerous wave surf, the high winds, and the flooding rains. How do all those hazards make you vulnerable in where you live, work, and play? And consider that in your plan and make appropriate plans. So you'll have to mitigate those hazards, such as, will evacuation routes get cut off due to falling trees or flooding roads and so forth? So you've got to put that much thought into your plan to make sure that your plan's viable so you can weather the storm. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to the other administrators and they'll add more detail to all the hazards that we're going to have to be dealing with this season. Thank you.
Up next, Elton Ushio, Administrator, Kauai Emergency Management Agency.
Aloha. I didn't bring notes, but I brought a laptop. But I didn't realize I wouldn't be able to read it with all the bright lights. Adding to what Administrator Magno said, part of your planning process should involve considerations and that decision between evacuation or sheltering in place. Important to have that discussion with your ohana ahead of time, identify potential areas for evacuation. Truth be told, most residents would be more comfortable and very safe sheltering in place at home, particularly if your home is well constructed, built after Hurricane Iniki or renovated to code, or if you've done structural retrofits for wind resistance. Other consideration, though, is no matter how hardened your home is, if it's in an area prone to storm surge or flash flooding, then you may need to evacuate nonetheless. So evacuation decision needs to be made ahead of time, not when the hazards are already present. And now, if you don't have access to a safe home, that's where you start to reach out to friends, family, private structures that have been hardened. Good considerations. As last resort options, your local emergency management and civil defense agencies will open public shelters or refuge areas. However, to be clear, many of these areas will be crowded. We don't provide much services. People will have to bring their own supplies, food, water, medication, bedding, even pet supplies. And while the facilities will accept pets, they need to be crated and they may be kept in a separate location from the owners due to safety and sanitation. And one more thing about our shelter and refuge areas. Those provided by various county agencies generally were not originally designed as hurricane shelters. We've done some retrofits to some, and while they provide some added degree of protection, having not originally been designed as that, they may not meet the higher engineering standards required of a shelter. So with that, next administrator.
So the final administrator is Amos Lonokailua Hewitt, Administrator for Maui Emergency Management Agency.
Aloha mai kākou. Yeah, to continue on with the preparedness message, we encourage all of our residents to stay informed using trusted alerts and warning systems. Emergency notification systems provide critical information and offer good guidance before and during a disaster. We encourage all of our residents to go up and sign up to your county alerts, emergency alert systems. Go ahead and follow your county emergency management agency, as well as monitor the National Weather Service. Every household should have a go bag. They should prepare a go bag for each member in case there's a need for evacuation. All of your family should be able to leave quickly and safely to a shelter. And the last final message is to be 2 weeks ready. In a major hurricane, communications, supply chains, transportation, power, water, and even fuel systems will be disrupted for a long period of time. And we encourage all of our families to be self-sustaining for 14 days with food, water, and essential supplies. Please prepare now, not before the storm comes. Thank you.
Mahalo, Administrator. We will now take on-topic questions with the media, and I'm going to invite the Governor back up to the podium, and we will begin with Michael, Aloha State Daily.
This one might be more for Mr. Bravender. If I'm reading the slide right, the other slide,
Go back.
It looks like we're looking at as many as 9 tropical cyclones that are above normal. What does that mean? What does above normal mean in this context?
A normal hurricane season for us is our 4 to 5 tropical cyclones. So we're looking at much above a range of 5 to 13. Could be a very active hurricane season. One disclaimer that we already mentioned is that this is a forecast for the Central Pacific Basin as a whole, between north of the equator, between 140 west and the international date line, not necessarily a forecast of what might impact Hawaii. I referenced the 2015 season, which was extremely lucky for us. We didn't have any direct impacts. But even something like 2020 was a very quiet hurricane season, and Hurricane Douglas skirted by just a couple dozen miles north of the state. So, as we mentioned every year, all it takes is one. You always prepare for that one impact from hurricane season. And this year, we might have many opportunities to prepare for that one hurricane.
And this refers, just so everyone knows, he has another question. This refers to the number of hurricanes projected, not necessarily the strength. We can't predict that at this point. But the number based on probability, there's a 70% probability, as was pointed out, that we would be in this range.
Actually, excellent point, Governor. And one thing to build on that, too, is that as we're looking at this long-term seasonal forecast, we don't know exactly where or when these tropical cyclones were formed. So we're estimating what they are long-term through some very, very long-range computer models. And it could be where we don't have the skill to distinguish whether that's 5 very long-lived hurricanes that go through for a prolonged period of time, or 13 very small, or for all we know, it could be 13 very big hurricanes. So there's a lot of uncertainty in this forecast as to how quickly the ocean waters warm up and what does end up developing, hence the large range, but definitely looks like it's above what we're used to seeing.
Okay, you answered all his questions. He had a follow-up. Next, we'll move to Hawaii News Now. Jennifer.
I'm Jennifer Robbins, Hawaii News Now meteorologist. Governor, as you mentioned, Hawaii's coming off a very historic wet season marked by a powerful Kona low and major winter storms that in many ways produce impacts similar to a tropical cyclone, including flooding, landslides, infrastructure damage, damaging winds, and power outages. I know that many folks are still recovering and very weary from this process. So what lessons has the state learned from these events recently, and how prepared are you if a hurricane were to directly hit the islands, especially with a strengthening El Nino?
Sure. So the lessons that we learned were that there is still unpredictability in the weather monitoring models, but we've become very aware how valuable the radars are, and they are fully intact. We had one radar that had been down, correct, and that's been replaced. So we want to always give people lots of notice. And one thing that we've learned more and more over these last, say, 5 years is that pre-positioning some, response people. We put people on top of dams this last year, for example, with General Logan's team. We pre-positioned some high water vehicles in different areas because the flooding was quite significant. Once the ground was quite saturated after the first part of the Kona low storms, just the smallest amount of rain, 2 inches over the course of an hour, created additional flash flooding. So we're going to have more of that in place. We've also been authorizing the purchase of more vehicles and more materials. That's one of the necessary things with the appropriation that we got from the legislature. So we're thankful for that. We've asked Barros and his team to tell us what they need. And so they've been able to do that. That also happened after the fire, just so you know. We're able to buy a lot of additional equipment. And with the fires, we did more fire breaks. With the floods, we're aware that we have to have more equipment. We're also clearing streams. That's another thing that was very important to people. And a lot of the sediment that had built up in streams was one of the reasons, there are many, one of the reasons why we saw extra flooding. So all of this work is constantly going on. The most important thing is for people to be super aware. Once storms approach, have that supply of materials in their house. It's so important. But stay closely attached to your devices and know what happens, because one of the floods that occurred came late at night and it came on quite quickly. So we want to be able to really communicate.
Mahalo, Governor. Up next, Hawaii Public Radio, Emma.
Hi there. We're talking a lot about preparation, that 14-day supply, and I know we had talked about opening shelters, but for our houseless population, I know our county has just released the point-in-time counts, and Oahu had nearly half that are still unsheltered, and half of them are part Native Hawaiian, and so I'm kind of curious what outreach or preparation you suggest for them.
Sure, absolutely. So once again, for our houseless population, they're the most vulnerable. So the moment that we get close to a storm, we have the teams, especially the first responders, going out into the community and asking them humbly to go to several different places, to some of the shelters where we can put more people in. We created 940 beds at the Kauhale. One of the reasons that we saw a 20% drop, this hasn't been reported on too much yet, but when you look at the point-in-time count, where it was 2 years ago, 20% more people were completely unsheltered, meaning they were on the corners, on the streets, in parks with no shelter whatsoever. We've now had 20% improvement in that, and that was a very big change. The largest change happened in Waikiki, actually. So we now have a lot more capacity, and so those Kauhale offer pretty well-designed facilities with infrastructure, with bathrooms, with some capacity to have food production in case we get flooding or winds. We would still encourage individuals that were houseless to go to the competent shelters that we open up at, like, the schools. So we'll be providing shuttles, we'll be providing direct transportation if that happens. But if people are houseless, or if you're in a community and you know some of the individuals that are in your community, be ready to help them get to shelters should a storm come.
Up next, Jennifer with AP.
Hi, can you talk a little bit more about Iniki happening during El Nino? I remember being in the 8th grade, and that was the only school weather-related school closure that I can remember. And then this school year alone, we've had multiple. So I'm wondering if that's an indication or anything that we should consider regarding climate change or anything in terms of this being El Nino.
Sure. I'll start and then I'll hand it over to John. So we had, I think, 3 days of school closures this time. They were all based on our worries about the flooding and the safety on the highways. We had a lot of highway damage, actually, and a lot of debris from the floods this time. Also, there was a significant amount of concern about erosion and rockfall, which we ultimately did see on the North Shore. We saw some large boulders, as you know. It was that instability and potential for landslides that made me most worried. I was thinking about school buses a lot of the time. It's a little less disconcerting when we're in the summertime, but there's still a lot of people on the road. I'll defer to John to talk about Iniki.
Iniki 1992, that was the end of a El Nino year. 91-92 was another strong El Nino. And until we had the 2015 hurricane season, 92 was our record-setting busiest hurricane season. And that's something as one opportunity. Iniki was September, school closures associated with it. We talk about August being the peak of our hurricane season, the most active, August into September. And something else to keep in mind is during El Nino hurricane seasons, it's not just that we're busier than normal, it's that hurricane season tends to be longer than normal as well. That with the warmer waters across the area, not only can hurricanes maintain their strength at higher latitudes, but also longer through the year. So 91-92 was a El Nino year with Iniki. 1982 was another strong El Nino summer, and Hurricane Eva hitting Kauai late in the season, Thanksgiving week in 1982. So those are, and actually even go back to the 97-98 hurricane or El Nino, tropical storm Paca developed in the Central Pacific Basin and eventually became a typhoon and very devastating to Guam in December. So even though we have hurricane season June through November, we have tropical cyclones that happen outside of, actually happened in 2015 as well. We had a depression in late December and then a hurricane in January. So during El Nino years, they're busy, but they can also be very long. So take the time now to get prepared and be ready for the entire season.
We should add also some of the considerations for closure of schools. In one case, we actually needed one of the schools because there was severe flooding in the northern part of Oahu to keep people safe and to shelter them. That was a consideration. We're always going to put safety first, of course. We were gratified that during the flooding, there was not, mass loss of life. We had a concern either if the dam had gone or during the peak of flooding late at night, that fateful night. So that's a concern and consideration. The other thing that we're going to contemplate in the coming years, and I'll discuss this with the leaders of all the institutions and schools and unions, is it might be time to begin to build in a couple of climate-related closure days, school closure days, not unlike snow days that they have in certain areas where the weather can be quite severe and it's unsafe to be on the highways. It was very similar. We were worried about transit safety more than anything. And that's what snow and ice cause, and that's what flooding causes. So we'll contemplate that. I am welcoming input. I don't know yet if people want to do that, but we don't want to lose school days. But even more so, we don't want to lose our loved ones on the road.
Mahalo Gov. Up next, Chloe, Star Advertiser.
Hi. So we're hearing a lot about a super El Nino season potentially developing, and I'm curious if this 5 to 13 tropical cyclones, if that is in line with a moderate El Nino cycle, or how will this potential super El Nino cycle impact this hurricane season?
There's a lot of uncertainty going into how strong this El Nino will be. One of the descriptors that the Climate Prediction Center has used is that the stronger an El Nino isn't necessarily equated with stronger impacts. The stronger the El Nino event is more likely to have impacts from it. So there's higher confidence that as we go into this moderate or greater El Nino, we've heard lots of terms of super El Nino. I've even heard a Godzilla El Nino reference. Like, I've never heard that term before. But as we get into the season, this time of year is hard to forecast out those ocean conditions long term. There's something called a spring predictability barrier, that as we get into the summer, we'll be more certain as to how strong the event could be. And it'll get a better idea. Right now, I think there's nothing more than about 35% chance of whether moderate, strong, very strong, as far as how strong it'll actually be. So that's one of the factors leading into this large range, is not only how strong it ends up being, but also how quickly it develops, whether it's this summer during hurricane season or stronger later in the fall and into the winter season.
Mahalo. Up next, we have Nikki with KHON2.
I have 2 questions.
Good.
Since you guys traveled from so far, I might have you guys but realistically, what should people expect in the 72 hours after a major hurricane?
In the 72 hours after a hurricane, and guys, you might as well come up because Thomas, you're always dealing with this, In the 72 hours after a hurricane, you can expect first responders to be there, but sometimes roads are so impassable that honestly, you should be prepared to help your neighbors. We saw that in on wonderful display in Wailua, across the state. A lot of times the flooding is so severe, one house may be spared in a cluster of 4 or 5, and that's when you're going to help your neighbors. We will get in there to pull people out of deep flooding. We even use helicopters at times to pull people out, but sometimes there's still winds after a storm like that in the day after the first hit, and it's difficult for first responders and air support to get in. So be ready to help your neighbors. That's why you have the 14-day supply of water, especially. because water systems can go out. Even after a storm, we see that sometimes water contamination can be a concern. But those first 72 hours will be there, but you want to be helping your next door neighbor.
Nikki, what was your question again?
Well, maybe some shelter up there too. So, what should people realistically expect 72 hours post a major hurricane? But also, since more rural areas are on the Big Island, you know, if, let's say, gosh forbid, something happens in the middle of the night, how do you have like spotters on the ground that's letting the EOC that's activated know what's going on? Are sirens being deployed? You know,
How much time do we have today?
I know.
So, you know, we work closely with the National Weather Service, and you know, as soon as systems ramp up, we're activated tracking, and so we're notifying the communities to get ready, and you know, as things progress, we're activated in the communities, whether it's shelters opened. We've got spotters, like you say. We've got the different substations, fire stations, our community groups that are feeding us situational awareness, so that we know what sites are getting hit. There's so much information now that's being produced that we have pretty good awareness of what levels are getting high winds, rainfall, and so forth. And it's just, you know, confirmed with eyewitnesses on site. So we kind of have a good idea of where we're going to have to respond. We're responding during the whole period of impact up until the point where it's hazardous for the first responders. Then we get off the roads, wait for things to pass, hunker down, then we start doing the response. We try to maintain communications so we know who's going to need 911 response, who needs life-saving, and so forth. So that's going on all the time. And as soon as it's safe, you know, we start to bring people in to take care of them, do damage assessments right away, and then start the recovery process. So life safety care is paramount throughout the whole incident, but this whole enterprise, as it's called, just comes together to take care of the community.
Can't add too much to what Talmadge and Governor just said, but I'll give some perspective and give away my age. I too was in the 8th grade when Hurricane Eva hit Kauai. And then I was just out of college when Iniki hit, and that's how I started my county career, coming in to manage a disaster relief grant after Iniki. And as Governor says, being on Kauai at the time, it really was neighbor helping neighbor, friends helping friends, and going through your communities and assessing damage and trying to ensure that everybody was okay. And from a government standpoint, I didn't know what was going on at the time. I was too young. I was not in my current job. Now being in emergency management for all these years, I can tell you what Administrator Magno said, very true. We won't know what's broken and what needs to be fixed. Initial damage assessment, getting those reports in from all of our partners, and that's whole community, all levels of government, private sector, amateur radio operators, whatever. We don't know what's going to be working. After Iniki, my brick cell phone worked for a little while and it stopped. My landline worked until they tried to clear the roads and cut the lines, and then it didn't work for months. But yeah, we'll be doing that initial damage assessment, trying to restore critical communications, critical lifeline services, commodities, emergency services, and what have you. And from there, you know, we'll do what we normally do at emergency management, try to manage the incident as best we can, leveraging all of our partners, whole community, whole of government approach. Yeah.
Short story. Volunteered after the wildfires, was not the administrator yet, and responding as a volunteer to the wildfires in Maui, I was able to see our community come together. What I was able to witness and manage was, at the beginning, 19 various organizations within our community with community leaders running a system, and I was in charge of kind of maintaining and managing the system. As the administrator now, we want to replicate that success, and so a couple of things we've done is in our isolated communities of East Maui, Molokai, and Lanai, we've staffed full-time specialists there to connect with that community from that community. We also have a community network that we set up prior to the storm. We notify and stand up our community network. That community network is made up of community leaders that we engage with in information sharing, damage assessments, and actually missions. There are a few missions during the Kona storms that our community network led with our government partners and helped us to manage that. Dewatering mission out in Waiakuli was one of them. We had a supply mission for East Maui was another one. And so we know that we need our collective whole community to be able to overcome the challenge that we face. We need situational awareness on the ground. We need leaders from within the community to help us stand up and organize correctly. And that makes my job easier, and it makes me positioned better to support the community. Thank you.
Mahalo. Finally, Kristen, KITV4.
Thank you. I'll make this short and sweet. But can you tell me by island how many hurricane-safe shelters we have? So that's one, and then I have another one.
Do you want to come up, General? Might be difficult to give specifics, but we can come.
So the state's made great progress in our sheltering program. We're updating right now the list of shelters throughout the state, and we're working on a dashboard. And as I think Administrator Oshio mentioned, is that there'll be different standards for different buildings. So a place of refuge versus a shelter. So that's being produced now, and we want it up and operational before hurricane season.
Are they all, up to standards in terms of being able to shelter people in what we're expecting to be severe hurricanes?
Some of them will be, and some of them won't. That's why one of the messaging, look at strengthening your home first, look at your neighbors, look at your family and where they live. Do they have something, live in a hardened building? And the next step is going to be, there's buildings out there that we don't own. It's not government. It's not a county, it's not a state, but it's a private partner. So we're opening that lines of communication with them because we need them to be part of our enterprise for sheltering solutions.
I would add, one of the challenges we have is that because of the recent floods, for example, some of our facilities are still in disrepair. We had, about $175 million worth of damage to schools, and often schools are, our primary shelters in certain regions. Kona Waina is a good example on Big Island. But we also have hotel partners. That's one thing that Barros was mentioning. We have hotel partners where often just being above the fourth floor is sufficient to avoid any kind of flood, and in many cases, if not most cases, they're also resistant to high winds. But we'll continue to update, and we do think that that's part of the answer to the planning question. We want you to be able to go to our website and see for your community, if you live in Kaimuki, or if you live in Kahala, or if you live in Kona, what the current best location to go is if we have a storm. So before the full storm season hits, you'll be able to see that on the Haima website.
Sorry, my final question is, so the past Kona lows, we saw the community, the neighbors coming out, especially on the North Shore. But one of the main things that they were saying was they weren't alerted quick enough. So how do we, the sirens went off hours after the floods. And then first responders were stuck, and by that time stuck in, not able to go in and out. And so how are we going to ensure that whoever's pulling the trigger on, emergency alerts and alerting the public, ensure that that will be done in a timely manner?
So the premise of the question is challenging because every storm is different. For example, we will be giving people several days of alerts beforehand, so they will know several days in advance whether or not there's a probability of a very high storm. They'll know what the level of the hurricane will be. Will it be a Category 2? Will it be a Category 3? Will it just be a tropical storm? So people will know several days before, as they knew several days before this storm. But we won't know until just hours or even minutes before exactly how much rain is going to fall. And so that's where the preparedness comes in. Also, you cannot always put a siren out. For example, at 11 o'clock at night, if there's flooding, you can cause more harm than good. That's why people have to know in the 24 hours beforehand and the 12 hours beforehand whether or not they want to get out of the region and go stay at friends' houses or at a shelter. It's very important to, in those days in advance, to make the decision as a family whether you want to take the risk of being in the community or not. In some cases, large numbers of people, as was stated, don't want to leave their homes because there is more comfort at home and they have their supplies there. But if there's a high probability of a heavy hurricane that's coming, we may in advance ask a lot of people to leave a certain region. It's very important that people acknowledge that. Again, you're going to have multiple days of notice. The only time we don't have a lot of notice for an event is if there's a tragic tsunami somewhat near to the islands. If that were to happen, we might only have minutes to hours. But with hurricanes, if I'm not mistaken, and I'll have John correct me, we usually have 2 to 3 days at least to know how bad a storm is going to be.
And I'll use that as a segue to come up here and talk about something else as well. For hurricanes, we'll be talking about this days ahead of time. And for a hurricane warning, people will actually get a cell phone alert 36 hours beforehand when we put a hurricane warning out. The other notification tool I wanted to mention was NOAA Weather Radio. That's something that we really didn't have a chance to talk about as the flooding events were unfolding. But in addition to the early notifications that we'll get as a system is developing and approaching, one thing that we heard from community members was when flash flooding started, they didn't get alerts. The National Weather Service changed the way we alert for flash flood warnings a few years ago so that we only send the cell phone notifications for considerable catastrophic impact when impacts are occurring. So people who suffer from flooding in normal flash flood conditions, water inundation, wouldn't get alerts on their cell phones, even though we do send out flash flood warnings. So those are broadcast over the emergency alert system. So you'll see them on TV, you'll hear them on radio. If you have a NOAA weather radio, it'll actually turn on and wake you up. It's an FM broadcast radio. It's a 24-hour weather broadcast that can just sit in standby mode. You want to hear what the weather is, you click a button, you can listen to it. But when it's sitting in standby, when we put out a flash flood warning or a hurricane warning or even something like a tsunami watch, something that's not going to alert elsewhere, you can have that NOAA weather radio, and it'll turn on. It'll wake you up if you want it to and let you know about that warning. So as the event is developing, you can get those alerts as well.
If I may, now that we have lots of media here, each of you offer notification apps that you developed on your own. And if the public subscribes to those, they can get alerted that way. And there are others available in the app stores on your smartphone. So those are other means of notification, and as other administrators have mentioned, each county has our own local mass notification system, and you could subscribe to those as well. Thank you.
Mahalo. We will now invite the governor to present the Hurricane Awareness and Preparedness Month proclamation with photos to follow.
So basically what this says, and this is all part of what we're doing today, is it describes hurricanes, their destructive potential, and that during the 2025 season, Hurricane Iona excuse me, and Tropical Storm Kaylee formed within the Central Pacific Basin. These are examples. But hurricane season runs from June 1st to November 30th. And the Central Pacific Center is our trusted source of weather information, but we have multiple sources, and we hope that everyone will avail themselves of these. As a storm comes, it can shape what we deal with, but shapes our lives for years to come. So please be prepared. This year's hurricane season does likely portend significant weather. So we want people to be particularly aware, and therefore we're going to proclaim May 24th to the 30th Hurricane Preparedness Week, and we're going to name all hurricanes after Talmadge this year, since this might be his last season. He's our. Look, he even holds it up funny. Thank you.
This formally concludes our program. Mahalo and e malama.
3, 2, and 1. Thank you.